Get ready to be chilled to the bone by these true stories of unsettling encounters that will make you question everything. From a seemingly innocent child with a sinister edge to a terrifyingly bizarre encounter in a vacant room, you won't believe the red flags and creepy moments in this real-life horror story. I've been lurking on the sub for quite a while and enjoy hearing other people's experiences while perusing. I recall a story from my own childhood that I had mostly forgotten, but here it is. My parents divorced when I was 4, maybe 5 years old. During and after the divorce, my brother, who we'll call Chris, my mom, and I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment townhouse. Now, this was not a nice townhouse that you might be imagining. It wasn't a complete shithole per se, but it was older and in a rougher part of town, something that a single mother with 2 kids could swing. The layout of the apartment is important to the story, so bear with me here. When you walk in the front door, the kitchen is immediately to your left, and there's a short entrance hallway right in front of you. The kitchen has an open countertop area that looks into a dining spot for a table, and a split-level living room/den area that also had glass sliding doors leading out to the backyard, where there was a rather sad and sparse playground. In the hallway entrance again, on the right, is a staircase leading up to our bedrooms. One day after school, my brother and I are out playing in the backyard on the playground, doing our kid stuff, when my mom told us she wanted to go check the mail. The mailboxes for the apartments are located at the front entrance, which is on the opposite side of the complex from us. Naturally, me being 5 and Chris being 9, my mom didn't want to leave us alone, especially since it was just about dark outside. We came inside and got ready to go check the mail together. On the way out, I remember my mom asking Chris if he had closed and locked the back sliding glass door. Chris affirmed that he had. Cut to when we're coming back from the mail room. This maybe been 20 to 30 minutes max. It's hard to recall fully, but my mom unlocks the apartment door. I'm lingering in the car for some reason or another. Chris hadn't realized that I wasn't in the apartment yet, and on the stairs leading to the bedrooms, on the right, he sees someone's feet disappear at the top of the landing, as if someone were scampering off to hide. Thinking that they were my feet, he doesn't think that there's anything off about the situation. Chris heads to the kitchen, and I actually make my way inside and head upstairs directly into our bedroom so that I could get ready for my nighttime bath routine. My mom is at the table in the dining area near the split-level living area downstairs, while I'm completely clueless, getting ready for bed in the bathroom. Chris, from downstairs, keeps hearing someone walking around in my mom's room. Now, I had a bad habit when I was this age of going through people's stuff. Not maliciously, I was just 5, so call it curiosity. So Chris, thinking that I'm being a nosy bastard, going through all my mom's jewelry and other things, runs upstairs to catch me in the act, making an effort to get me in trouble. Chris runs up the stairs, sprints across the hall to my mom's bedroom, and throws himself stomach first onto the bed. When he looks up, he doesn't see me. He sees a tall, slender man with a bright green Goblin latex Halloween mask on. This man is also holding a large knife that he swiped from our kitchen. My brother sits silently in shock as the man in the mask raises a single finger to his mouth, indicating Chris to be quiet. In an absolute true form of my brother, he screamed bloody murder for our mother. Now, I've heard things going on, but I have no idea and I'm not aware of what's happening. I've gotten into my big, oversized sleep shirt and I'm heading downstairs to have a glass of milk before bed when Chris screamed. The man ran downstairs and encountered my mom, who immediately jumped into action. Our baseball gear was in the living room, and my mom instinctively grabbed a bat and started fighting this man in our house, while he, all the while, is taking swipes at her with her own knife. I first noticed what's happening when I've come downstairs to the kitchen. I pulled up a step stool to reach the counter and to pour that glass of milk. That's when I see, over the bar, the guy push my mom off the steps into the living room, where she lands flat on her back. She starts swinging the bat wildly, trying to make any contact she can with it, and boy does she. She makes direct contact with this guy's knee, and I can still hear the aluminum thud of the bat into the bone. I'm absolutely glued to this image, frozen in place. not scared, just so young that I couldn't fully process what I was seeing. After taking the blow with the bat, it seems like this guy has lost all will to fight with my mom. He runs towards the front door, which is right by the kitchen. I'm now mid-pour of my glass of milk, still frozen, milk continuing to spill out all over the counter and floor. Before he exits, he stops and turns directly towards me, and in that green goblin mask, with the knife, screams a primal, deep sound of rage paired with frustration. And as he ran out, he slammed the door so hard that it seemed like our whole place shook. I continued standing on my stool, pouring milk everywhere, frozen for I don't know how long, could have been only a second, but it felt much longer than that. I don't remember what happened afterwards, but all of the parts I've relayed are very clear to me. It became obvious to us that that man had made his way in through that backsliding door. The one that Chris claimed to have locked, but in actuality, most likely he didn't. The moral of this whole story is to lock your doors and to not just assume you did. And while this story happened over 20 years ago, I have to say, man in the goblin mask, let's never meet again. I'm a 24-year-old guy who works in housing on a college campus. One other piece of information about me that will probably be important for this. I'm bisexual. One night during the school year, I started chatting with someone on a hookup app. He was talking about how he had never hooked up with a guy and wanted to try it, but was a little bit nervous. I told him that I would be willing to help him out. I'd let him take the lead, but totally understood if he wasn't ready yet. His profile said that he was 4 miles away and was 23 years old, so it more than surprised me when he told me that he lived on campus. Against my better judgment, I agreed to still go hang out with him. The first red flag that I for some reason missed was the way he talked about what I had assumed was his room. He kept calling it a room instead of his room, and he even originally stated it as he knew a place that we could hook up. I did question him about it, and he never really gave me a solid answer, although at the time I didn't think much of it. These next parts I really didn't think of as red flags either, only until afterwards. When I got to his room, the living room and kitchen were completely empty. There were 4 bedrooms in the apartment, and he led me to the 3rd one. I had noticed the 4th bedroom had a light on, but the door was closed. Taking into account all of his actions leading up to this, I assumed that he was closeted, and maybe just curious. I was surprised he was inviting me over, when his roommate was clearly home. As I followed him into his room, I noticed that it looked pretty bare. Nothing on the walls, not much stuff in there. There were sheets on the bed and a few other random things around the room, but that was it. I hardly had time to process the bareness of the room when he turned around to me and said, "I don't think I can do this." I told him that there were no worries, and that if he changed his mind to hit me up. Well, about a month or so later, at the end of the semester, we did health and safety checks. In my position, we usually don't do them. We have the RAs to do them, but we were low on staff that day, so the extra help was needed. The room where the above event happened, it just so happened to be one of the rooms that I had to check. The apartment at this point was completely empty. On the documentation sheet that we used, it said that the apartment was vacant, which could have just meant the occupants had moved out. But out of curiosity, and the fact that I was starting to get the creeps for some reason, I checked our database, only to find out that there was no one assigned to the room that past semester, meaning no one was supposed to be living in that room at all. I have absolutely no explanations to how this guy got into the room or what his actual intentions were or really what the whole thing was about at all. I reckon it's something I'll never know, but it still gives me goosebumps when I think about it. Did I dodge something sketchy that night? Or did I avoid something much more sinister? What was the actual intent of having me come up to that room? And how did that guy, and whoever he may have been with, gotten in there in the first place? Trust your gut feelings, everyone. I didn't have any that night, and the red flags that I'm examining now, I'm lucky that I'm not in a position that I sorely wish I would have noticed them then. I wanted to share this story because it stands out so starkly to me. There's only one person I've met in my life that I'm absolutely positive was a psychopath, and it happened to be a child. The summer after I graduated college, I was living in a house in Berkeley, California, with a few PhD students. It wasn't the best neighborhood, but it wasn't the worst either. There were families living in the neighborhood, including the people in the house next to us. It seemed like a reasonably nice, two-story home, but on several occasions there were police cars and/or ambulances outside of this house. We never really questioned why, as police cars weren't a rare sight in the area, and we had only ever seen a young girl and her mom in the house, so there was nothing overtly abnormal or concerning. One afternoon, my roommates and I had just finished smoking a joint in our backyard when we hear a knock at the door. I open it, and it happens to be the mother from next door. I was a bit taken back, and even more so when she says, "Hi, I wanted to ask you guys something. I really don't want to have to call the police." At this point, I'm thinking she must have seen or smelled us smoking weed, and while it was Berkeley, it technically hadn't been legalized yet, so I'm thinking we need to apologize and talk our way out of some trouble. But then I noticed this woman is visibly shaking. She was clearly terrified and said, "I just don't know what to do. I'm having a situation with my daughter, and I really just need another adult to be there." My roommate Sean and I immediately agreed to go with her, while my other roommates look on, incredibly confused by whatever the hell is going on. This mother is asking some stoned students to be adults. I figure she must truly be desperate for help. Sean and I walk over there with her, and she explains that her daughter has some issues, which are currently manifesting as her standing on the roof of their house, threatening to drop her mom's work computer off the edge or simply jump off herself. Wow, just got super real. Sure enough, we walk up the driveway to the house, and there's this kid standing on the roof of their two-story home, dangling a MacBook Pro over the side. She sang in this disturbing sing-song voice, "Look, mommy, no hands. No hands, mommy, no hands." Sean and I immediately make eye contact with each other because we're both creeped out. This doesn't seem to be a normal kid. The way she's speaking reminds me of the twins from The Shining. She's not crying and doesn't seem even remotely distressed. On the contrary, it appears she's enjoying this torment of her mother, like it's some kind of sick game to her. The mom starts explaining to us that her daughter has had issues like this for many years. She has a psychiatrist and a therapist, and the mother has called both of them. They recommended calling the police, but the mother has been through this quite a few times before and doesn't want the child to go through the ordeal of being restrained and taken into the hospital yet again. She's frightened and exhausted and doesn't know what to do. So I just start talking to the kid. I tell her about how I used to love climbing on the roof of my house, and now I'm into rock climbing, and I bet that she would love that too. Besides, it's much safer than climbing around the edge of a roof if you make sure you use the proper gear and safety precautions. And the fact that she's so unsafe right now is really scaring her mom. I told her if she climbs down, I'd be happy to talk to her more about climbing, as well as show her the pet geckos we have that literally climb up the walls. I'm just pulling things out of my house at this point. I have no idea what to say or how to mediate a situation like this. I'm just trying to diffuse the tension and get her to come down. She's flat out ignoring me at first, continuing to taunt her mom, but eventually she seems to get bored or irritated with my attempts to engage her. She turns around and climbs back towards the window where she got out onto the roof. She runs down the stairs and out to meet us, then says in the same weirdly sing-song fake, "Come play with us, Danny," voice, "I dropped your computer on the roof and now it's broken. I'm sorry, mommy, do you forgive me?" There was zero actual remorse whatsoever in her voice. It sounded so disturbing and manipulative. I was blown away that it was coming from a 10-year-old girl and not some demon child from a horror movie. The mother is still shaking and looks plainly overwhelmed, so I offer to go up and get her computer from the roof. She agrees and escorts me through the house, up the stairs, with her daughter trailing behind. It appears to be a perfectly normal and well-maintained middle-class home. By the way, the little girl is clearly irritated with me, spoiling her game, and repeatedly orders me to leave. I ignore her, climb out the window onto the roof, and the laptop is sitting by a gutter, seemingly unscathed. I climbed back through and hand it to the mother. At this point, the girl realized her bluff was called and skipped off to her room. Mom proceeds to explain to me that this whole thing was triggered by her changing the password to her laptop after the girl logged into it, stole her mother's credit card, and ordered over $2,000 worth of stuff. This girl is freaking 10 years old. Apparently, she's been pulling shit like this her entire life, and no one understands why. They had to move the girl's younger sibling into a separate apartment with her father because they were afraid she would hurt him. The mom was crying at this point, saying they really tried their best to get her the help she needs, and they're just at their wits' end. I did my best to reassure her. I gave her my phone number and told her to contact me if she needs help in the future. At this point, Sean and I noped the out of there after that and went back to our own house. That mother never contacted me, and we eventually moved out a few months later. That was the extent of my interactions with this young girl, although I think about that mother every now and again. I wonder what the next months held for them, the next years, and if they ever found a resolution to why she was acting out in such a way. My best educated guess? They never did. And that little girl, who is now an adult, has probably found her way into some much more malicious type of activities.